Hello, this is my workout for tall people who want to get big legs. Now I am 6'1", so I'm not a giant or anything, but I'm significantly taller than most bodybuilders out there. Most are hovering around the 5'10" mark, and even some quite considerably shorter than that. And legs seems to be one of the hardest muscles for taller people to really grow. And I don't know what the reason is behind that, because it's not significantly harder to grow the legs when you're taller, but it does require a bit more patience and focus when you're training the legs. You can't just go through the motions because you really need to contract and control the weights. So right here I'm doing some squats. I always like to do squats as my main movement for legs now. I had a period where I just never did them, and it wasn't a big issue. You can definitely substitute squats, but the one thing that squats give you that other exercises don't is posterior chain strength. So that's your whole lower back and back area are hit more considerably than any other leg exercise like leg press or hack squats. So you really can't supplement that. So I did reasonably heavy today. I did 120 kilos for sets of 4. I think I did 4 or 5 sets of those. And when I was doing them, I realised my stance wasn't allowing me to be fully explosive from the bottom of the movement. So what you see in this workout here is I've just got 60 kilos here, and I'm just trying to find the point where I lose that power at the bottom. So I was going down slowly and pausing at the bottom to see which stage was where I lost the tightness, and how I could change my stance to combat that. And what I've determined here is my feet need to be slightly wider and have my toes pointing out more, so I can get more glute activation out the hole. So that's something I'm definitely going to work on. And for you guys, you need to play around with squat stances, because just squatting in the same stance every time is not it's not going to help your muscles adapt to different scenarios. So definitely go wide and go narrow, and even if you can and have the mobility to do so, do like a Tom Platt style squat, which is where your feet are almost touching each other. And in doing that, you will activate different muscle groups. So the narrower stances activate the quads more. They're more quad-based movement. And the wider the stance, the more glutes are activated. So it's good to have it's necessary for a good development to do a variation of wide and close stances when you're squatting. So definitely think about that when you're squatting. One of the main things I'm doing now is just using this lightweight, because I did my main sets and I figured that I didn't have that explosiveness. So now I'm just playing around. I was doing that 4 kilo bull wall throw, which I've never done before, but it was good for explosiveness, because what you want to do is explode up and out like you're jumping, and that wall ball throw allows you to do that and see some results. So what you don't want to do is just throw the ball with your arms and your shoulders. What you want to do is squat out the bottom as hard as possible, and then just let your arms come up as you do so, but don't use any force from your shoulders and your arms. That's why it's important to go quite light with that ball. It was only 4 kilos. So now moving on to the bodybuilding portion. Now realistically, if you are 6'5", or the really upper end of the height, then you might have problems with your knees when you're squatting. So what you're going to have to do is just cancel squatting out, because there's no point pushing something if your joints just can't handle it. And leg press is normally the answer to that. I don't know if any of you know, but Paul Dillett, who was about 6'3", one of the best bodybuilders, one of the biggest arms ever. He didn't squat at all. He only did leg press, and he had some very impressive legs, so it can definitely work. But the one thing you've got to do is control the weight. Don't just make sure the range of motion is fairly significant, and really tense the quads at the top of the movement, and don't lock out your knees. So keep your knees slightly like a degree out from lockout, and just tense the quads. Now I went upstairs to do that back, I mean you saw it just then, it was a back extension. Lovely machine, helps great with deadlifts and any kind of posterior chain movement. If you are into strength, you've got to work your posterior chain because it's the foundation for all your strength. So if you're talking powerlifting, squat, very posterior chain dominant, deadlift, extremely posterior chain dominant, and even the bench press, it's all about having a tight posterior chain as a base on that bench to explode up with your chest. So extremely important to work on those areas. I then did some more isolation exercises, which is, if you have this machine, it's great for supersetting quads and hamstrings. So I didn't go anything too heavy. Some people like to go really heavy on their leg extensions, but as long as you can really tense the quad, you don't need to go heavy. I think that was only 50 kilos on that leg extension, which I know I can go much heavier than that, but at this late stage of the workout, that was burning very nicely. And then I immediately jumped over to this lying down hamstring curl, just blasted out reps. You see, I like to hold it at the bottom sometimes. It just completely eliminates any momentum. And this is my deadlift right here. 200 kgs. Peace.
Stress out, waking up, it's time to get it. Ain't no room for the haters, ain't got time for jealousy. I'm too focused on the music, the money, and where I'm headed. If it rain on my parade, I'ma get an umbrella. Fuck off.